She paid $600 for the 1965 Ford Mustang on a warm evening in Tennessee, the kind of evening when the sky burned orange and the world felt a little slower. Emma was 29, a single mom with grease stains on her hands from years of fixing what she could and patching what she couldn't. She had grown up watching her father in the garage, handing him wrenches, memorizing the names of every part under the hood. When he died, she promised herself that one day she would finish restoring a car in his memory. The ad that morning had almost seemed like a mistake. A 1965 Mustang for $600, must go today. Even in poor condition, it was worth thousands more. But Emma wasn't thinking about flipping it for profit. She thought about the promise she had made to herself and the dream she had carried for years. When she arrived at the barn, the seller stood tall and tired, his hands rough with years of work. His name was Jack. He pulled back a tarp, and there it was, the Mustang. The paint was dull, the tires flat, dust thick on its surface. Yet its body lines still carried the beauty of another time. "She's been sitting almost 20 years, Jack said. "Belonged to my wife. She loved that car. Took it to every parade, every Sunday drive. When she passed, I just couldn't touch it anymore." Emma touched the hood, brushed away the dust, and whispered, "She's beautiful." Jack studied her face. "You really like her, don't you?" "I do. I don't have much, but I'd take care of her. I'd bring her back to life." 600, he said simply. It was nearly all she had in her savings, but Emma pulled out the envelope and handed it over. Jack's hand lingered on hers for a moment, then he gave her the keys. He turned away and walked back toward the farmhouse without another word. That night, Emma towed the Mustang home. She tucked her son Caleb into bed, then sat alone in the garage, staring at the car for hours. She ran her hands along the wheel, breathed in the old leather, and whispered to the memory of her father, "Dad, I'm finally doing it." Every spare minute became devoted to the Mustang. She watched tutorials, borrowed manuals, and worked until her knuckles were raw. Caleb sat nearby, sometimes handing her tools just the way she used to hand them to her father. The car slowly became more than metal and bolts. It became her therapy, her connection, her promise fulfilled. One evening, a knock came at the door. Jack stood there with a duffel bag in his hands. He looked past her toward the garage. "I was driving by," he said. "Thought I'd check in." When he saw the Mustang, he froze. It wasn't finished, but it was alive again. Fresh tires, polished chrome, half an engine that was nearly ready to run. His eyes softened. "You weren't kidding," he whispered. "You're really bringing her back." Emma smiled. "I promised myself I would." Jack unzipped the duffel and placed it on the workbench. Inside were original Mustang parts, carefully labeled, along with photographs of his late wife behind the wheel, smiling as if she were still alive. "These belong with the car," he said firmly. "My wife would have wanted that." From that day, Jack returned often. He showed Emma tricks her father hadn't lived long enough to teach her. He taught her how to time the ignition, rebuild the carburetor, and listen to the rhythm of an engine like a heartbeat. He became part of the family she didn't realize she was building. Caleb called him Mr. Jack, and sometimes Grandpa Jack without thinking. Jack never corrected him. When the Mustang's engine finally roared to life, Emma burst into tears. Caleb cheered, clapping his small hands. Jack stood with arms folded, silent, eyes shining. Weeks later, Jack walked into the garage carrying an envelope. "She's ready," he said softly. Emma wiped her hands and smiled. "We did it." He handed her the envelope. "Open it." Inside were transfer papers. "I already paid you for the car," she said, confused. 600 wasn't the real price, Jack replied. "That was just a test. I wanted to see who would come for her. Some collector looking to flip her for money, or someone who'd love her. When I saw how you touched that car, I knew. But I needed to be sure." Emma's eyes blurred with tears. "Jack," he placed his hand on her shoulder. "You gave me something I didn't know I needed. For years, I couldn't look at that Mustang without thinking about my wife. Now, I see her alive again. Through you. Through your boy. You brought her back." Emma covered her mouth, overwhelmed. Jack reached into his pocket and pulled out another paper. It was his will. "In here," he said, his voice breaking, "I left the farm and my tools to you and Caleb. I never had kids of my own. Been alone a long time. But you too, you feel like family." Emma gasped. Caleb ran up and hugged Jack around the waist, calling him Grandpa without hesitation. Jack wrapped his arms around him, his rough hands trembling. That night, the three of them sat on the porch, the Mustang shining in the driveway under the moonlight. For the first time in years, Emma felt like life had given her back more than it had taken away. And in the stillness of that night, she realized that sometimes $600 could buy something far greater than anyone could measure.